Hey everyone, Albedo238 here again, and I want to talk about one of my favorite genres in gaming. Would be fighting games. And I have several fighting games here that I wanted to show that are some of my favorites right here. At least a few, well, just a few of them anyway. I've played more in the past, but the ones I'm about to show are rank among some of my favorites ever. That would be Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I got it from my Dreamcast. I also have this downloaded to my PS3. Then Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube. And of course Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Wii, which I've touched on these games in a previous video, and I have stated that I like Brawl more than Melee. But both are still great games. Both still rank as among some of my favorites in the fighting genre. Then after that, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom for the Wii. Another great game. Another great entry in the Versus series. And finally, Super Street Fighter 4 which I have for my PS3. As you can tell, yes, this is one of my PS3 games. I know I never did show my PS3 collection, but here's one of the games. There's also Street Fighter Alpha 3, which I love, but I don't own that game for any system. Though I own it, I have it on the Alpha Anthology, but it's only it's kind of limited in options and stuff. I don't like it, and I don't like it as much as the Dreamcast version. I used to own the Dreamcast version, but I don't have it anymore. So we won't talk about Alpha 3 for right now. We'll stick with the other games that I've just mentioned. Since we went in chronological order for each game that came out, let's start with Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is the fourth entry right now in the Versus series, in the Marvel vs. Capcom series. And until Marvel vs. Capcom 3 comes out, which I'm looking forward to, as I mentioned in a previous video, this is so far the best entry in the series. Now, some some fighting game fans out there, who are really deep into the fighting genre, say that this game is a little unbalanced, and I guess it is in a way. Some of the characters do, some are outclassed, and it does feel a little unfair, especially on the Capcom side. A lot of the Capcom characters feel a little outclassed compared to the Marvel characters. But when it comes down to it, it's still a great game overall. Having 56 fighters, with 24 to start out with and 32 to unlock, and all the alternate colors to collect. It's good. At the time, this is pretty big. It was a game that definitely boasted a lot of content before Melee came out. Before Smash Bros. Melee came out. It came out with its boatload of content, and of course, only to be succeeded by Brawl, which has probably the most staggering amount of content of any fighting game or perhaps any game out there. But Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is still a fantastic game in every way. Like I said, it is a little unbalanced, and that's probably the biggest problem with it. But I can't see a lot of other really big issues. And of course, the music is okay. I mean, the jazz soundtrack is not exactly what you'd expect to hear in a fighting game, At least not the kind of jazz music. Brawl has a kind of a jazzy soundtrack on it. Has a few soundtracks that are kind of in a jazz style. At least one of them I know is kind of in a jazz style. But it actually fits for the. It's fun to fight to, so it's kind of upbeat. Where this is kind of slow, kind of smoky style jazz, and that's kind of one of the big letdowns right there. Other than that, it's great in every way. Can't really find any other major faults with it, or really big complaints with it. That I know of, anyway. Then we move on to the Smash Brothers games, which, Melee and Brawl. I have covered on these a bit, I've covered on them, but we'll talk about them a little bit more, at least my personal experiences. Melee was probably the third game I got from my GameCube, right after Luigi's Mansion and Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader. As I've mentioned, those were my first, there was Luigi's Mansion and Rogue Squadron 2, Rogue Leader were the first two games I got from my GameCube, and this would probably be the third one I got. And it really impressed me in every way. When I had not gotten to, I never did get to play the first game until Virtual Console, and the combat just was impressive. In every way. All the amount of content, all the game modes and such was mind blowing. And I've stayed up for like hours, playing this game. It was just that great. It did take me a long time to realize how unbalanced the pace of the game is, how unbalanced some of the characters are, and and the fact that this game doesn't, in terms of visuals, the game doesn't really make use of what the GameCube has to offer. It doesn't fully make use of its visual capabilities. This game really turned me into a Nintendo fanboy. Just to say that much right there. It really did. It turned me into a major Nintendo fanboy. I've since gotten out of that phase, even with Brawl out, I do have other consoles now. Even especially before Brawl, I actually owned a PS2 and such, and now I've got a PS3. So, and I got another Dreamcast. So, I definitely own consoles that are outside of Nintendo. Outside the usual Nintendo kind of rut. But even though I'm no longer a fanboy, I like this game. I am a Nintendo fan, not a hardcore one, and definitely not a fanboy anymore. But this game is still great. With Brawl, I do play Brawl a little more now, but I'd like to get back into playing a little bit more of this game. It's still fun. And I play it on occasions. It's still a great game. Then, of course, Brawl comes next. And I did talk a good bit about it, but I want to talk about there were some other problems with Brawl that I noticed. They're probably the only ones that come close to game killers. That almost come close. They're not quite as bad, but they can... For one thing, I mentioned that the AI in Brawl was a lot more, more advanced. But at sometimes, because it is a little bit more advanced, it also makes it a little more cheap. Now, Smash Brothers games in general, even Melee had cheap AI at times. But I think with Brawl, it's a little stronger because the AI is a lot smarter, and definitely, and especially in the classic mode, some of the battles are a little, like when you're fighting a giant opponent in the classic mode, the giants are overpowered, really overpowered, and they can knock you out easily, and it's just sometimes it's just unfair, it's just an unfair challenge. But it's not enough to be a complete game killer, you can overcome it. But one thing in this game, there is one thing I do not like. It's not a full game killer, but it's probably the most annoying, stupidest thing that's ever been put in a fighting game, or in the Smash Brothers series at all at this point. That is the tripping. Oh yeah. The tripping. Why, Nintendo? Nintendo. Come here, Nintendo. Why the fuck is there tripping in this game? Okay? ask me that. Why is there tripping in this game? What idiot what idiot who worked on this game decided there should be tripping in this game? Tell me that. Because I would love to really meet the person who put tripping in this game. I'd really love to meet them. Anyway, now I got that out of the way. Brawl really dazzled me even more than Melee did, though. Yeah, in terms of the good, Brawl really dazzled me with how much stuff it was in it. Even before I played the game, I was reading up on updates for this game, just what they were doing with it. You know, not just adding more trophies into it, but also like adding multiple soundtracks and the ability to collect more, hidden soundtracks, and the use of stickers, collecting stickers and using them as power-ups and Subspace Emissary, and just all the content that was being added into Brawl, just everything going into it. The reimagining of Adventure Mode, Subspace Emissary, the reimagining of the special battles, in the versus mode. It was just amazing. I really loved it all. And it's real, and overall, despite the bad things I mentioned, I like this game. It is really good. But Nintendo, listen here, Nintendo. If I find that if there's a fourth game, if you guys make a fourth entry in the Smash Brothers series, and I find there's tripping in it, I'm gonna go to your offices. I'm gonna find the guy responsible for putting tripping in the game, and I'm gonna break my foot off in their ass. Okay? Just let that be a warning to you. Anyway, awesome game. And what can I say? I know there are a lot of fanboys out, not fanboys, but a lot of big fans of Melee who have problems with Brawl, especially some of the stuff I mentioned, and they prefer Melee more. That's their opinion, but I think they're nitpicking a little too much. I guess I'm guilty of nitpicking too, but you know what? I can still look past the problems and still find this to be a great game. In every way. Stages are more inventive. The character roster is great. Much bigger than before. Not as big as probably a lot of fans wanted it to be, but it's still good. And just it's, despite those problems, it's near flawless. I'm probably going to stop here for right now because this video is probably getting a little bit long. I will continue on with the next two games in the game. Yeah, I'll finish up in the next video talking about the next two games. So, see ya.